Hey friends! My name is Antoinette Chanel, and I know, obviously, because I pressed record, I'm ready to finally make some long-form content talking about Diddy. I was debating whether or not I was going to do that, but yeah, I think I want to. Because as a millennial, someone who grew up in the 90s, it has always felt like Diddy was so close to so many controversies, so many crazy events, but, you know, he just barely scraped by, just barely escaped being found guilty for them. And it's like, that's too many times for anybody to ignore. The City College Stampede deaths, the East-West rap feud that I lived through in the 90s, the nightclub shooting, the Diddy MTV Cassie era, and so on. Also, as a millennial, it has felt like Diddy has been like this gatekeeper for lots of content and talent and just lots of things that we maybe saw a glimmer of once or twice and then we never saw again. And Aubrey O'Day, as well as some other folks who appeared on Making the Band, have alluded to this as well. The idea that Making the Band never shows in reruns on MTV, even though we've seen them rerun Laguna Beach, they've rerun Jersey Shore, that was a big one. They've rerun 16 and Pregnant, Teen Mom, you know, they always will rerun their content at some point, but Making the Band never got that. Also, the legacies of some people who were very instrumental to what the hip hop scene looked like in the late 80s, throughout the 90s, into the 2000s, like really building into what shapes how like the music industry, how the hip hop music industry looks today. So these are people like Black Rob or Craig Mack, as well as others. We've already talked about East Coast, West Coast, so that's obviously going to be Tupac and Biggie. But for this video, I would like to shed light on the girl groups that emerged from Bad Boy. Specifically 3 groups: Total, Dream, and Danity Kane. So we'll be covering their beginnings, their rise, their time with Bad Boy, and the things that happened when the spotlight was no longer on them. So let's get started. And it really only makes sense to jump in with the group Total. They were, of the 3 groups that I've mentioned so far, they were the group that formed first during the 90s, and they sort of paved the way for what girl groups under Bad Boy, the expectations that Puff and the industry had of them, and they were where it all sort of started. So we're starting with Total. Total was formed in the early 1990s and signed to Bad Boy Records in 1995 by Sean Diddy Combs. They first appeared singing hooks on the Notorious B.I.G.'s tracks Juicy and One More Chance before releasing their own music. They are comprised of the members Kima Raynor, Keisha Spivey, and Pamela Long. As far as their sound and style, I would say Total had a sultry, street-savvy R&B sort of vibe that blended smooth harmonies and hip-hop production that contrasted some of the other R&B acts that were out at the time. They scored a hit with Can't You See featuring the Notorious B.I.G., and then that sort of led to them becoming a defining act in the Bad Boy roster as far as the label was concerned. And many people also regard Can't You See as this sort of R&B and hip hop crossover track. So, I mean, don't get it twisted. The genres definitely were near each other on the spectrum of music, but as far as really seeing R&B acts collaborating with hip hop acts, this song in particular led to sort of that subgenre developing. Also, the songs Kissin' You and What About Us became staples of 90s R&B radio by Total. Total absolutely helped to cement Bad Boy's R&B identity amid the dominance of hip-hop and the influence that subsequent female trios and solo acts that blended with R&B and urban hip-hop aesthetics. As far as their albums are concerned, Total's self-titled debut in 1996, that was a platinum success. And then Kima, Keisha, and Pam, which was dropped in 1998, that one also went on to great reception. Total's active years under Bad Boy ended around 2000 or 2001, and their second album cycle marked their final major Bad Boy release. So that Kim, Keisha, and Pam album, Kima, Keisha, and Pam. That album was the last project that they did with Bad Boy, and that cycle was the last project that they had with Bad Boy. Now, since their breakup, the group has reunited occasionally for performances. There was a Bad Boy family event a few years ago, and they've also participated in a few R&B tours. However, the group has not released any new music under Bad Boy in the 2000s or the 2020s. They are not currently rostered with Bad Boy, but their legacy remains tied to the 90s era rather than new label output. So Total is always going to be regarded as one of those pioneer acts when it comes to girl groups, when it comes to R&B, when it comes to that crossover appeal that I mentioned to you. They were trailblazers. Moving forward in the chronology of Bad Boy girl groups, we have to now talk about Dream. And I absolutely adored the music of all of these groups that I'm speaking about today, but having Dream on the radio when I was a 16-year-old in the year 2000, that was fun in a way that is hard to explain now in the 2020s. Like, we had Christina, we had Britney, we had Jessica, we had lots of pop acts. And then, of course, we had Brandy, we had Monica, we still had Aaliyah at this point. But there was just something about the little sassy brattiness of Dream that was so much fun to get to partake in as a teenage girl. The culture that I got to grow up around as a millennial born in 1984 it was pretty awesome, I have to say. I saw so much representation of women who looked like me, because I had Brandy with Moesha on television. She also did Cinderella, in which Whitney Houston was her fairy godmother. There was also En Vogue, there was Aaliyah, there was Monica, there was just countless Black female actresses taking up space in Hollywood, both on the big and the small screen. And that was nice. It felt like there was just such a nice variety of things to partake in as a young person growing up at that time, especially as a young girl growing up at that time. Okay, so Dream was first assembled in the year 1998. Originally, their name was First Warning, and they signed to Bad Boy Records in the late 90s after being noticed while performing locally. The members for the classic lineup, the starting lineup, the founding lineup for Dream, included Holly Blake Arnstein, Diana Ortiz, Ashley Poole, and Melissa Schumann. Dream was Bad Boy's pop-leaning R&B group, mixing teen pop and dance influences with soulful harmonies, targeting the early 2000s R&B pop crossover market. So very much like what Total was able to establish before them, Diddy, the Bad Boy label, they positioned Dream to be sort of this pop R&B mix, which I have to say, as somebody who lived through it, I think they did a very good job. I really enjoyed Dream. Dream had their breakthrough with their debut album, It Was All a Dream, which dropped in 2001 and peaked at number 6 on the Billboard 200 and then went on to go platinum. I remember I had also gotten my driver's license and my first car around this time. And so being able to drive around and listen to your favorite music was the wave. And I used to love when He Loves You Not would come on the radio. He Loves You Not went on to become a defining early 2000s girl group anthem and a top 5 Billboard Hot 100 hit. Summer 2001 was so great. Their follow-up single, This Is Me, also charted and received heavy MTV TRL play. So after the first album that Dream did with Bad Boy, they went on to do work for a second album titled Reality that was supposed to drop in the year 2003. This album was shelved during label conflicts and ultimately not widely released at the time. Following this, the group was dropped by Bad Boy amid industry shifts and internal challenges, leading to their breakup sometime around late 2003, early 2004. Now, since their breakup, Dream eventually reunited for nostalgia tours in the 2010s, but they did not release any new major music, and they haven't been active with the Bad Boy Records label as a partner in the 2020s at all. Moving forward in the chronology, my friends, I've saved the best for last. And I say that not as a slight to the other two groups that I've mentioned, because I really do love Total. I love Dream. Been a fan, always gonna be a fan. But Danity Kane is my absolute favorite. And it's time that we talk about their time with Bad Boy and what their time has been like since. Now, if you're like me, you met Danity Kane in 2005 on the show Making the Band. I think it was the third cycle of it, because there was an iteration with Lou Pearlman. That's the guy that founded NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. Then there was a second iteration of it with somebody else. I think that was O-Town. And then the third one was Diddy. So if you were watching Making the Band 3, where Danity Kane was assembled, then you know what an emotional roller coaster it was to sit and tune into that every week, to hear the things that he would say, Diddy would say. Or do you guys remember Jason? Like, I'd love to get a status on where that guy's at today and what his life has been like since appearing on Making the Band. I mean, I guess to give him some credit, I haven't heard any sob stories out here with him like going on a hobo tour, complaining about how he wasn't treated fairly by MTV and Diddy owes him and this, that, and the third. I've not heard anything about that. If you know about that, let me know in the comments, because you know I love the mess. Y'all know I love the tea. But I just remember him being such a standout character when it comes to the cast of supporting characters who were on Making the Band. But once the season finally came to a wrap, Diddy finally decided who he wanted in this group. We got the members Aubrey O'Day, Dee Woods, Shannon Bex, Dawn Richard, and Andrea Fimbres. They signed with Bad Boy Records as part of their formation and subsequent projects. And this is what's important to understand. With the other two groups, they sort of pitched themselves as a music group and therefore were given a chance by Bad Boy. Danity Kane was formed by Bad Boy, or at least, you know, the founder chairman of Bad Boy. So their formation, their sort of collaboration together was unique in that these were essentially 5 women who were strangers who came together. Now, they weren't fully strangers, because while living together for the course of that reality show, they obviously got to know each other. But that is a very different way to assemble a group than how, say, Destiny's Child came together, whereas all of those members were childhood friends and decided to form a group together that Matthew Knowles then managed. So I just want to point that out, because that's what makes Danity Kane unique. And the group saw debut success with the release of their self-titled album, Danity Kane, in 2006. This album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, which was a major milestone for a girl group. This makes them historical. Their success, their accomplishments, their projects, this is what makes Danity Kane unique, in that they were able to accomplish this goal. And then they followed it up with Welcome to the Dollhouse in 2008, which also debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. They are the first female group in Billboard history to have their first 2 releases debut atop the charts. Continuing on with the trend that Diddy had started with Dream, Danity Kane's style also marked a shift from earlier R&B influences to something that was a lot more pop-driven, hook-centric, performance-forward girl group sounding. It was a very similar impact to what Destiny's Child had, but this was within the MTV reality TV era. So it was like it was fresh. Unfortunately though, because Danity Kane was formed on a reality television show, and given how audience behavior just tends to go, there were a lot of intense personal and professional conflicts that plagued the group very early on. And this ultimately resulted in the departure of members Dee Woods and Aubrey O'Day in 2008. Now, what we saw on television was that these 2 women were fired. And the way that they've explained this since, in all the interviews that I've seen Aubrey do, any of the interviews that I have seen Dee Woods do, that's how they understood it to happen as well. They were fired on national television, and that was that. But behind the scenes and behind the edit, tensions were already just very, very high, and there was probably a likelihood of the girls separating anyway. And what's unfortunate is that it sounds like a lot of this was engineered by the label, by the network, which was MTV, aka Viacom, and just by outside sources that were not any of those original 5 members. You know, and that's too bad, because what I loved about watching Making the Band, and maybe some other millennial women can chime in on this too, I really enjoyed that it felt like we were seeing true friendships between some of the women. I mean, of course, there were catty moments too. It was a reality television show at the peak of reality television, like when it was a gold mine and everyone was doing reality TV. So of course there were going to be petty, catty, stupid moments, but there were also some really beautiful moments of womanhood, woman friendships that I thought were really beautiful. And so I know that that also fueled a lot of the enthusiasm that I had for Danity Kane right after the group was formed, because I felt like, you know, they're going to pick up where the Spice Girls left off, you know, all of this unity and girl power and stuff. And I was really excited for that. I was very young. Okay. I was young and I was naive. All right. I was in college. I was like 20 years old. So give me some grace. All right. I understand now in my 40s why hoping for that from a girl group that was assembled by Sean Combs was a complete pipe dream. So as I mentioned already, the members Dee Woods and Aubrey O'Day were removed. They were fired on television on an episode of Making the Band, and the group officially disbanded in early 2009. With their bad boy contracts ending that year. They would later go on to have a few reunions. So they reunited in 2013 to 2014 as 4 members. I think the one member that was missing from that was Dee Woods. And from what I understand, that was because she was busy working. And then they also formed DK3 in 2014. So this was the newest iteration of the group. DK3 was also the title of their newest album after that formation, which also dropped in 2014. From 2018 to 2020, the trio of DK3 continued to release singles and tour. So the DK3 trio, so that we're clear because I don't think I clarified it before, this was now Aubrey O'Day, Shannon Bex, and Dawn Richard. So Andrea Fimbres had taken a step back because she said she needed to focus on her family. And now 2025 and 2026, I'm so excited to see that Danity Kane has announced the Untold Chapter Tour extending into 2026. So they started performing together in late 2025 to much fanfare. I'm kind of bummed that I couldn't see it, but I don't live near Los Angeles anymore, so that's why I couldn't get out there to that. But I saw Andrea, Dawn, and Aubrey united on stage, and I got so excited. Apparently, they're going to continue with Dee Woods returning in 2026, marking the first new performance cycle in years for them. Now, I am a little sad because I haven't seen any mention of Shannon Bex. I haven't seen any footage of Shannon Bex. I hope that she plans to reunite with the group at some point because, I mean, anybody out here who is a day one Danity Kane fan, I'm pretty sure they'll tell you, we just want to see all 5 of them again. I love seeing all 5 of them perform. One of the best concerts I ever went to in my entire life was the Christina Aguilera Back to Basics tour in 2007. For that concert, Christina had both the Pussycat Dolls and Danity Kane opening for her, and I gotta tell you, the mics were on that night and everyone sounded superb. I saw this show at a place that was called I Pay One Arena at the time. It's the San Diego Sports Arena, whatever they're calling it these days, because it changes names every 5 to 10 years. I saw that performance at that arena, and I had seen Mariah Carey at the same venue about 4 months prior to that. And absolutely no shade to Mariah, but the vocals that I heard out of the Pussycat Dolls, Danity Kane and Christina, were better than the ones that Mariah had. This was during her Emancipation of Mimi tour. Now, I say all that not because I'm trying to slander Mariah or because I'm trying to start a fight in the comment section or because I want the lambs to come at me. I love Mariah. Her performances were great when I saw her that evening. What I'm saying is, that concert was the best concert I've ever been to because I had not heard people sound so good live before. They sounded better than the records, and I would love the opportunity to get to witness that again. I know production changes. I know that, you know, I don't expect them to sound exactly the same as they did almost 20 years ago now. But the magic of the 5 of them performing, because every single one of those women are all lead singers. They are all decent dancers. They are all decently creative and mysterious, to the point that fans want to know more about them, every single one of them. And so I would just really, really love it if I could witness that magic on stage again before I have to leave this earth. Shifting back to Danity Kane and their impact and legacy, their commercial success under Bad Boy marked a high watermark for early MTV reality and TV-driven group formations. So like they sort of set the bar for, if you're going to form a group on reality TV, well, this is what they need to be able to come out the gate and do. Their formation also helped to demonstrate the power of cross-platform music marketing in the mid-2000s. Their chart dominance challenged industry norms and briefly positioned them as a peer to top pop and R&B acts of the era. And that's the part that I don't think Danity Kane got to revel in quite enough. When they were in their performance era, I would say probably right after Welcome to the Dollhouse dropped, they were at the top of their game. And they challenged a lot of the popular acts that were out at the time. They challenged the Pussycat Dolls. Their act rivaled what Britney was doing at the time. Remember Britney's circus residency? You know, they also had a sound that Beyonce wouldn't have been above in her solo career at this time. You know, they were on par with the other acts of the time. And what's unfortunate is that the label and the network did not take them seriously enough to help boost them beyond some of these people, because they had the potential to do it. Dawn Richard has given an interview giving details about this before. I will link it in the description box below, but here's a little snippet of what I'm talking about.
The music guy.
He was the one.
For pop culture.
Yeah, come on now, echo. You love him?
I love Puffy.
You know, he was a fashion connoisseur.
He was
a
everything.
ladies' man. He was a mogul at a time when there weren't many young black
He was
moguls.
the best marketing professor I've ever had.
That as well. And you did y'all try to make it work?
Yeah, we did.
A couple of times.
But y'all had fights and
Yeah,
y'all broke up and got back together and broke up and got back together. It's like a bad marriage.
But let me tell you, that's some real but listen, our label didn't believe in us. We were a show. Like, when Puff saw money, like he saw ratings, and MTV was that was what the money was. Danity Kane was just a concept of something bigger, right? He had no clue we were gonna be that big. I'll tell you, when we first came out, they said only do 100,000 copies because they're not gonna sell more than Cassie. That's what they told us when the first album came out. We sold 100,000 in a day, and they had to figure out how to get more units in by the time the week, and they barely got it, and we wound up selling 230,000 copies, and we could have sold more. We were in the Guinness Book of Records forever, but the only group
y'all were limited because they didn't have enough product.
They didn't believe in it. They didn't think we would. They didn't think we would sell. They had no clue we would be that big. And then we got out there, and when we toured, they wouldn't give us any money, so we were sewing our costumes from Forever 21.
No, who wouldn't give you any money?
The label.
The label. Which label was that?
We were on Bad Boy. Yeah, we were on.
Bad Boy Universal?
Yeah. We were Bad Boy Atlantic. And it wasn't like it's just the truth that Puff really, he saw the money in the show. And then when they realized how massive it was,
Caught him off guard.
they were like, oh, okay, yeah, let's figure this out.
So he was more interested in the television version. Of
Yeah, he
Danity
was making
than
making
the
the band
singing
was
group of
huge.
As of the year 2026, Danity Kane are not currently signed to Bad Boy for any new recordings. DK3 was released through other labels, and their current touring is independent of the Bad Boy label. So their original ties ended after their 2009 breakup, though their brand remains historically associated with Combs' era of the label. And so as I kind of wrap this up, looking back at all of this beautiful nostalgic history for these girl groups that have had major impact on my life at very key points, whether it's when I was a child and just kind of coming into music and R&B and the femininity around that, or if it was my teenage years when, you know, I was excited to have a cute boyfriend and I had a little part-time job and a car that I could drive, or it was young womanhood. You know, I'm moving out of my parents' house now, starting my career, and this is what I'm bumping in my car as I commute to work. I think the takeaway here is that, number one, there is this message that women can't get along, women can't come together and collaborate for things, women don't work well together. And I don't think that's true. I think that the evidence of these three groups and their success proves that yes, women can create beautiful things together when they want to, and when the patriarchy is not interfering with those efforts, it can be very beautiful. Number two, another reason I wanted to make this video is because I think that as people sort of detail everything that is going on with Sean Combs, with the trial, with the accusations, with the stories that we've all known about for years, I think that it's very easy to just get fixated on maybe the sexual crimes, or to fixate on the Tupac versus Biggie thing, which was huge, still is huge. But I think that a lot of the women's stories get lost in that. And so that's what I wanted to do today, is share a little bit more of that, because all of these women, every single one of these women has been hugely impactful for pop culture, for R&B and hip hop culture, for 90s culture, early aughts culture. Like we're gonna act like they haven't contributed. Come on now. And I think that if you are a fan of theirs, especially if you're a woman fan of theirs and you feel kind of conflicted about everything that's come out, you're not really sure how to feel, I think that keeping their artistry alive by continuing to listen to their music, continuing to support them, follow them on socials if you want to, I think that you can partake in that just for the love of the music and for the love of the talent. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, friends, I have yapped enough and I've got to get going, but I hope you enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And leave me some comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your favorite songs by some of these groups. What was your experience of the bad boy era? Because I realize that not everybody watching this is going to be the same age as me. So let me know, when did you sort of plug in? Were you a more Danity Kane fan, or have you been here from the beginning, or did you not really pay much attention until the early 2000s? I would love to hear from you. All right, friends, I'll catch up with you in the next video. Take care. You've just watched one of my videos, but did you know there's an entire Antoinette-averse? On my namesake YouTube channel, I dive into current events and share my critical commentary. Over on Instagram, you can keep up with my life as a writer and educational specialist. On the Write Life blog, I explore how reading, writing, and emotional expression help us to grow. And on my Substack, I publish personal essays and sometimes share sneak peeks from my upcoming book. Wherever you join me, thank you for being here. And I'll see you in the next one.